Well, good morning, everybody. Good to see you all here. I'm Pastor Chris, one of the pastors here at Foothill Church, and it's good to have you. If you're new this morning, we're really thrilled to have you. I'll be talking about what's going on behind me in just a minute, but as you can see, we're moving. We've got the boxes sort of help us remember all that's happening. We have a move center out in the lobby that we've set up for any of you who are like, what's going on? Where are we going? There's even a little Google map on the wall so you can see exactly how far. We're 0.4 miles away from where we're going. And we're going to be moving from this location around the corner to our Baseline campus on the weekend of September 21st and 22nd. And we're super excited to go and have more room. And it's getting all done this week, and it looks absolutely amazing from everything from the family room and going into where we're gonna sort of redo the gym so it's repurposed for our use on the weekends, and everything just looks amazing over there. In fact, if you want to drive by, you can just drive by and see it. It's literally go to this stoplight down at Baseline, turn left, go 2 blocks, and you'll drive right past it. You'll see a new sign out there that says where we are and where the location is. So I hope you're excited. And that's just a few weeks away, only 4 weeks from today. It's hard to believe that it's coming on us so quickly. When we move over there, there's going to be a lot of stuff happening, especially in that opening month. In fact, there's this little brochure that you can pick up out at the Move Center, and it talks about everything from our opening weekend. We're going to have baptisms, and if you've not been baptized following your salvation, okay, that's the order. Biblically, you get saved, then you get baptized, and if that hasn't happened for you, if you haven't done that, then you should do that. That's the first step of discipleship. That's the first step of obedience in following Christ. Jesus says, you're saved and you're baptized. Go and baptize. Make that a part of your discipleship. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And we're going to do that as part of our opening weekend. We have several people signed up already, and we want to just celebrate the goodness of God in changing lives. That's what we're all about. And so we say, man, what a great way to kick off a new place is to celebrate what God has done in people's lives. So if you're sort of looking for a special moment to do, you'd be the first people ever baptized at our Baseline campus, and we'd love for you to be involved in that. Just check the box on your connection card that says you want to be baptized, drop it in the offering bucket at the end, and then we'll take care of the rest. We'll make sure you get all your questions answered. I'd love for you to be involved in that. But all the other things are on here, everything from food trucks on Saturday nights to the APU gospel choir, which we really have never done anything like that before, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So pick up that, and that'll tell you kind of what's coming down the pike and how you can get involved. Start inviting your friends. We want to just see it be a great opening weekend for everybody, okay? Well, I have some special guests with me today. This would be my family, and I want to just make this clear. We've gone through a parenting series, and we're ending today with a Q&A. We've done this for the last several years. We end kind of our summer series with a Q&A. Gives you a chance to ask questions. There's a number on the screen that you can text your questions to. Any questions pertaining to parenting or children or issues between parents and children, whatever, go ahead and feel free to ask those. But maybe just so you know, a lot of you don't know who they are, and so why don't we start here and give us your name and how old you are, and just pass the mic down.
I am Gabby, and I am 19.
I am Tucker, and I'm 17.
I'm Berkeley, and I'm 14. I'm Gracie, and I'm 11.
And I'm Michelle, but you don't really want to know how old I am, do you? Last time I admitted I was 29. Yeah. But my birthday is coming in September, so if you want to get me anything, that'd be fine. I was an only child, so, hey, what can I say?
Let me make it clear. We don't think we're up here as experts at all. We're here as journeymen like you trying to figure this parenting thing out. And so my kids, I've asked to come up here. We thought this would be kind of fun to do, but also tell them to be honest. So where there's shortcomings in our family, I've told them, tell people that. That's okay. I mean, they need to know that we don't do it all right, and we're really trying to live God-honoring lives. We're trying to raise kids in a gospel-centered home. And so I just want you to be aware of that. I didn't bring my kids up here, my wife up here to go, hey, we got it together. Let's tell you how to parent and how your family should look. God's been gracious to us. I love my kids. They're wonderful. We have a wonderful family by God's grace, but at the same time, I don't think we do it all right. And I just want you to know that we're not up here thinking we've got our whole act together, and there's places where we struggle as well. So you send your questions, text them in, whatever you want to ask, and then we'll just take them one at a time, okay? So let's start with the first one. How do you as parents deal with differing opinions on discipline and rules for kids. So I think what this question is asking is, would Michelle and I have different opinions about discipline when it comes? Well, I would say overall, Michelle and I are in agreement about, kinds of discipline and things. Now, when it comes to a particular incident, we'll generally, let's say one of them is disobedient and there needs to be discipline, we will generally come together and try to decide as a couple what that should look like. So, and then that gives us a chance to kind of have our disagreements, if there are any, away from the children. And so that's not something we want to be hashing out in front of them, and they're like, yeah, I like dad's option versus mom's option, right? So we try to do that. We said to one of the services this weekend that this was a very intense week of parenting for us, and so Michelle and I had lots of conversations like that. But doesn't mean we never disagree, or I will have done something and she'll come and say, babe, that was really harsh. The way you handled that just wasn't right. And I'm like, she's always right when it comes to that, and that drives me crazy, but she's right, and so I may have to go apologize to the kids, whatever. Then rules for the kids, those tend to be kind of circumstantial, because we kind of have our family idea of what we're supposed to do and not do, but then there's times when, maybe I let somebody watch a movie that Michelle would have been like, why did you let them watch that movie, or something like that. And so, I don't know, we have to kind of deal with that stuff. You can talk about that, and yeah.
Yeah, well, what... what's kind of been God's grace is that I would say in our overall philosophy of disciplining our children, we are like pretty much spot on. And I'm not going to sit up here and take any credit. We read some great books when Gabby was a baby, that I felt like got us off on the right foot. And so, I'm happy to recommend some of those for you guys. Baby Wise is one of them, and that whole series that is put together, you can get them at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, whatever. There's like a Toddler Wise, I can't remember what comes after that, but there's like a wonderful books, and then we've recommended them several times. Any of the books by the Trips, TRIPP, Shepherding a Child's Heart, Instructing a Child's Heart, and for those with teenagers, Age of Opportunity, those will help you so much to get on the right page. And I think the philosophy, it's really important for you to be on the same page. Now, how that is meted out, that's where you're going to maybe have some differences. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, I think what Chris said's right. Yeah. If you have different ways of attacking those things, or laying the actual discipline out and the rules, you need to get together before you lay them out before your kids, or you're going to have a good cop, bad cop thing going all the time. And you've got to really be careful about that.
Okay, good. Next one. How do you balance discipline and the rod and having mercy and grace with our kids the way God does with us? Okay, so I'll just say it out loud. We did spank our kids. They are older now. They're all past that age. Now hear me. There's a difference between spanking and abusing your children. We didn't slap them. And God gave your child and you a perfect place to be spanked. It's not the legs, it's not your back, it's not your head. It's a cushy piece of fat on the back of you called your butt, right? And it still stings and all that, but we didn't use our hands. We had this little thing. We actually called it the rod of correction, and
it's in my kitchen junk drawer.
It was not a wood spoon that had no give to it. I mean, honestly, we really thought about this. We didn't want to. The goal was not to beat our children. That is not what the rod is. So really quickly, let me just talk about spanking, because I think that's very apropos. We spanked, but we wanted the spanking to be something that was done out of love. It's a loving response to your child, to their sin. The Bible talks about you use the rod to drive foolishness from your child, not childishness. There's a difference between spilling milk because they're uncoordinated and open defiance towards you, okay? We would not spank a child for spilling milk. We wouldn't spank them for being childish, but they would be spanked for being foolish and being defiant to us. And it was very controlled and very measured. we wouldn't tell them, I'm going to give you 3 swats on the bottom, and that's what you're going to get. So they would know. And it wasn't me, I'm super angry right now, and I'm going to vent my frustrations on you. That's abuse. That's abuse. Okay? This is measured. Okay? Now, I think biblically, you have to understand, the goal of our parenting, again, is to help our kids see and embrace the gospel. Okay, we want them to know the gospel. Okay, so part of that is teaching them in every way that we can. And so one of the things that you have to realize is when the Bible talks about discipline, Hebrews says the Lord disciplines those he loves, disciplines them. And if you look at the context of that verse in Hebrews, it's suffering. There's something physical happening to God's people at that point. And that's important. God never does what some of us do and say, you openly rebelled against me, Chris. Go stand in the corner for an hour. Chris, I'm going to give you a timeout in the quiet seat. There's discipline that happens, and I know it's discipline, and there might be suffering that comes into my life as a result of that, okay? So there's a connection between physical and the physical discipline and understanding that this sin is wrong, and hopefully it's going to jog me. I mean, you read the prophets, the major and the minor prophets, there's no way you can escape it. God says, I'm going to do these things to you because you have openly rebelled against me, and these are hard. These are painful things I'm going to do to you, but the goal is, we all love Jeremiah 29, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you. Read the context of that verse. You are in the middle of harsh discipline. I have driven you out of the land to Babylon, but I'm telling you, someday is coming when I'm going to bring you back. And when I do, it will be extraordinarily good news to you. Okay? How can our kids understand the good news of the gospel if they don't understand the bad news of sin? That's what discipline is intended to do, whatever kind it is, okay? When they were young, we used spanking, controlled. It wasn't anger. If you're angry, don't spank. If you can't control yourself, you shouldn't spank. If you have a foster child, of course you don't spank. I mean, there's certain instances where you don't do that, okay? And when they get older, then you've got to start to do things that are more... the punishment fits the crime. Michelle, Michelle tell you one about that. But let me just say one more thing. Mercy and grace does not mean we take sin and sweep it under the rug and act like it didn't happen. That's not grace. That is not grace. You understand this? Grace and mercy are always costly. They are costly to the person who has to give them, not the person who receives them. So we don't want to say to our kids, your sin doesn't matter. It's not. We'll just kind of act like it doesn't exist because I don't want conflict in this home. No, you sinned. You sinned grievously. You did this. This pains me, okay? Now, Daddy is going to take the punishment, if you will. Daddy's going to clean up the mess. Daddy's going to do this. So there are times when we want to be gracious. And I would say err on the side of grace, not on the side of justice, if you have to err one way or another. But recognize grace and mercy are not just acting like things don't exist. Otherwise, your kids are going to be like, sin's not a big deal. And you do not want to sin that. No, it's a huge deal. What it does to me, what it does to this family and all that, okay, you need to know that it's very, very, very costly. You want to talk about,
Yeah. So, when they're little, that's when the rod would be more appropriate because your kids, you cannot reason with a 2-year-old. And I definitely fall in that trap. I love to talk. You can't tell probably. But I would love to try to sit and now listen, and try to reason out with them. But you really can't do that. And it's more frustrating for you because they can't understand it. And I'm sure it's frustrating for them because you were just yammering on about stuff when it would be much easier and more effective to use the rod at that moment. But when we did, we always made sure, we wanted to be characterized by making sure our kids knew why they were getting the spanking. We said it before and we said it after. And the after would not be this thing where we would walk out of the room in a huff and you sit there and think about what you've done, mister. It was always a time where we were trying to reconcile them to ourselves and to the Lord, where we would pray about it, and ask them to confess as much as they could at the younger ages what they had done and what it was, so that when we left, it wasn't this feeling of embitterment. If you don't do that, you will have a potential for bitterness in your kid if you don't help explain through the why. And then, of course, like we were saying, as they get older, which is kind of easier in a lot of ways, you do let the punishment fit the crime. And I love it when it's a nice little package like that. Sometimes you have to talk about what that's going to look like. Maybe it's not exactly going to fit the crime, but you look for that. And one of the things that we did, for example, was if our kids said something in our home when they were younger that we didn't like, and of course when your kids are little, the S word is stupid or shut up. So when they would say something like that we didn't like, I would give them about a teaspoon of vinegar. Now, vinegar's not bad for you. I've actually read places it's really good for you, so I didn't feel too bad about it. And the long-term result is none of them like vinaigrette on their salad, but, well, that's okay, I guess. But, we wanted them to taste the bitterness and the sourness of the vinegar, to show them that your words, if you said something unkind to your brother, if you used a word you shouldn't use, that you just said something that was bitter and sour, and leave that on a taste in their mouth. Of course, I'd give them a Coke afterwards, it'll go away. But, just to make the punishment fit the crime as much as you can. And you can find that when they're little as well. But I think you have to also remember, discipline and mercy and grace are not mutually exclusive. In fact, just like Chris said, God disciplines those he loves. We do not show love to our kids if we don't discipline them. Yeah. And it's really important to do that and be like-minded in how you're going to do that, in your home. And it's really important for the long term.
And you really should agree on that. You really should.
Yes,
and
you
if
really
you
should.
don't do it. Because otherwise there really is going to be a good cop, bad cop in your home, and you don't want to have that happen. So, kids, did you feel like mom and dad didn't love you if we spanked you? Were we? I mean, was it? What? Don't you don't have to describe what a spanking's like, but
everyone knows what that feels like, right?
I never felt at all like my parents were treating me badly by spanking me, because they always made me understand why they were doing it. And you know what? It worked. I didn't want to do what they spanked me for after that, because I knew that was going to be a punishment. But it was never like, we don't like you, we don't love you. It was like, we love you, we're sad that you sinned, and we want to teach you that what you did was bad. That's what it was.
And mommy would cry.
Yeah, she would. Yeah.
And by the way, both of us did it, so it wasn't like, wait till daddy gets home. Don't do that to your kids. That's torture, right? Dad's coming home, and suddenly dad becomes the evil monster when he walks through the door, right? That's not wise. So, okay, let's do the next one. Is it okay to, and how do you give unsolicited advice to an older child who is out of the house? Well, none of ours are out of the house. Is it okay to? Well, sure. And I would say I think this all depends on the relationship that you have with your child. Hopefully you've got the kind of relationship with them that you can go to them. Your relationship with your kids ought to follow some kind of continuum that starts at a benevolent dictatorship. I'm the dictator in our home, right? But it's benevolent. Okay, I'm not Stalin. And over time, it ought to turn into a friendship. Okay, so can friends talk to friends unsolicited? Yeah. So can we hope that that'll be our kind of relationship, that by the time Gabby and Tucker and the kids are out of the house, I can go to them and say something to them? Then that would be the goal, yes, that we can now speak into their lives and they can speak into ours as friends. You're not your kid's friend, and understand how I mean that, when they're 17, that's not where you are. You're their coach, you're their teacher, you're their master, you're the person who's calling them to obedience. And so I think the only way that you're going to get to that place when they're outside of the home is if they've learned to respect your advice over time and see, Daddy and Mommy, you know what? I'd be a fool not to listen to them. And you're not just doling it out to just kind of beat them over the head with all your inane words. You're measured, you know when to talk, when to shut up, and then there's times when you go in and say, we need to talk about something. And hopefully by that time they'll listen to you. Yeah, let's do another one. When and how should parents let go or give up control of their children?
Never.
Yeah.
I am a for sure a control freak, I have to admit. It's very hard for me to relinquish control because I like to fix a lot of things. I really do. I think that's bound up in the heart of a lot of moms because we want to make our kids' lives go really, really well. And, but it is hard for me to think about those things. And I think that it's a process, like Chris just said. It's all about relationships. So when you're parenting your children as young children, obviously you're in the moment parenting them, but you have to always be thinking, what do I really want long term out of this situation? Do I want them to be so connected with me, when they're 25, 26, 30 years old, that they can't live their life? And really and truly, I'm sure some of you have heard this before, the best parents work themselves out of a job. And that's what we really, our goal is to work ourselves out of that job where we release them to freedom and they're fully functioning adults. And, to tell you the truth, maybe some of you guys can attest to this. We're living in an age right now where we've got what are called helicopter parents, where we have children that are just being hovered and smothered by their parents, because I think a lot of it, to be honest with you, is out of fear. And that is what I know what motivates my control. I'm afraid. I'm afraid something's going to happen to my kid. I'm afraid they're going to make the wrong choices. I'm afraid. And I'm just telling you, that is sinful behavior. And we have to get a hold of that as parents and not let the fear of man and the fear of this world. I know it's a crazy world out there. You can't listen to anything on the news without thinking, oh my gosh, if I let my kid go on this missions trip, what's going to happen to them? Or if they do this. But we cannot live in a spirit of fear. God commands us to do just the opposite. So we have to start with us and come to grips with the sin in our own hearts about that, and think of our parenting as a funnel. When our kids are little, the funnel should be really, really tight. So we are in control of a lot of things as far as the outside. Now, you're never really in control of their heart, just so you know, in case you think you are. I did for a long time, and then all of a sudden I'm like, man, they've got a mind of their own. What in the world is this all about? But you start with the funnel really small, and it gets bigger as they get older and bigger, and then slowly you release them to the freedom that they have really and essentially earned, because they have proven themselves to be faithful. And it's going to happen no matter whether you want it to or not. And the last thing you want to do is not give up control of your children so that you are not making them fit to be adults and parents themselves. Okay, so we have to start with the funnel really small and slowly release them to freedom, so that by the time they've hit college, they're adults, we have prepared them to be adults. We have not stifled their ability to be adults.
Yeah. I think it goes back to the other question, too, about them taking your advice. If they feel stifled, some of you will try to put restrictions more and more, because your kids, as they get older, suddenly what was cute when they were kids is now very annoying, and then it goes from annoying to being very sinful, and so you want to try to put strictures around them. And a teenager's like, wait a second, too late in many ways. But if you have that kind of relationship where you're slowly letting them out, like Gabby, let's say Gabby moves out of the house this next year, hopefully we have the kind of relationship that Gabby will now say, I still want my parents' advice. And they've given me the ability to learn to do that while I was under their roof, so that when they let me go, it's not like they let me go and I go wild. They let me go, and now I'm still like, they're my mom and dad, and they've got wisdom of the years that I want to learn from them. So, yeah. So, how do you guys tell or show, what do you guys, I can read, I am reading. What do you guys tell or show your kids about alcohol? Why don't one of you answer that? Yeah, Berkeley. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, my parents, I've never seen them drink anything except, well, no, never mind.
What? No.
There's nothing.
Well, she drank a little wine in Israel, but that was just to taste it. Yeah.
No. Let me say something real quick, Berkeley, you keep going. But listen, you've heard me say, we don't think drinking alcohol is a sin. I mean, I don't stand up here and say you must not drink that, but for whatever reason, Michelle and I in our lives have said that's something we'll feel convicted about. We're not going to do that. So I'm not saying that has to be your conviction, that's our conviction. Okay, so keep going.
Okay. So I've never seen them drink at all, ever. They've told us if we can drink when we're 21, the appropriate age, but it has to be in moderation. And, well, it doesn't have, I mean, it does have to be. Okay, it does have to be. It does have to be. It does have to be. We have our own choice, but
Yeah.
it should be in moderation.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad has told us multiple times that if we're ever wondering, not at this age, of course, if we're ever wondering what does a certain beer or a wine or like a cigarette, cigar, a pipe, anything like that. He said if we can go up to him and be like, Dad, I wonder what that tastes like. And he said, I will go out and get one with you.
Here's my thinking, parents. I would rather them do that with me than I would with somebody else, okay? So now, I will say, and I've told my kids, some of you have let your kids drink alcohol and they're 18 or 16 or 15. I'm just telling you, that's flat out disobeying the law, okay? I mean, that's not wise to do at all, okay? And I mean, we've been to weddings where that kind of stuff happens and nobody's monitoring that. I think that's foolish. On the other hand, I want to teach my kids about it where they go, look, they don't have to be afraid of it. And if they grow to a place where like, you know what, we like a glass of wine with dinner, their mommy and I are not going to sit back and go, oh my gosh, we've lost our kids. It's just, that's fine. That's our conviction. That's the home I want them to grow up in. I want them, that's how we've decided to do that. And so while we talked about it and that it can be done in moderation, there's people that really enjoy that, and that's fine. Then when they're 21, that's fine. And if they're at all wondering like, I don't know what might happen, then come on. I'll be happy to have my first beer with you. Okay, I'm sure I'll hate it, but you may love it, and I'm not. But that's how we're going to do that. Yeah. Gracie, did you want to say something?
Okay, yeah. You shouldn't think of it as like beer or wine is like such. They're bad, but they're not like a huge sin. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to hell or something like that. They're just. If you want to try something, I mean, try it, but just don't get like off the hook drunk.
There you go, drunk. There you go. Wisdom from an 11-year-old. All right. Next question. How did you teach, or are you teaching financial responsibility to your kids? Tucker, talk about that.
I think now, well, especially for Gabby and I, since we both intern at the church and we both have a job at Chick-fil-A, they are really trying to coach us in what we should be spending our money on, what we should and shouldn't be spending our money on, and how to be saving our money. So it's just really making sure you're spending. Like, if anything, you're not spending, because saving everything.
So what are some things
great.
that we tell you to do with your money?
Don't spend it.
Okay, good. What do you have to spend your money on?
My phone bill.
What's the first thing that you gotta
tithe before phone bill.
Okay.
First, we have to tithe on our monthly check.
Yeah.
Or not monthly.
Yeah,
sorry.
but you just
our
tithe on
check.
your
Then come necessities, or the things that we have to pay for, like a phone bill, or if we're going out to eat, we might pitch in to help with that. Then after that, it's all either for entertainment or you're just not spending it.
Yeah.
Because at this age, I mean, I don't have a car, and I'm not anywhere close to having a car, so I won't have to spend money on insurance, buying a car, and gas. So I just have all this time to actually save money.
Yeah.
So
we tell our kids you got to tithe. I mean, that's the first thing you're going to do. You're going to save, and then you're going to live on the rest. And so we don't, Gabby and Tucker sort of graduated up, if you will, to smartphones, right? iPhones, and I was like, I'm not paying your full bill. That's just not happening. I'm not going to be one of these parents that just float you until you're 25 or 30 years old. You're going to contribute to this, and so that's part of. I want them to value what they have. I think if you give your kid everything, nothing has value. Nothing. They just think life just gives them everything, and then they get out and they're like, how come I can't have all the things in the world that all my friends have? And that's that's damaging to your kids, I think. So we want to teach them financial responsibility, not only, okay, do this with your money, but we're also going to make you pitch in, because I think that's a helpful thing for you to learn, and you suddenly realize, oh, there's choices to make, right? Oh, I can either buy that pair of jeans, or I can go out to dinner with my friends. What do I want to choose right now? That's a valuable thing for your kids to do. I want them to. I'm not going to rescue you from that and say, well, do both. I'll pay for it. I don't think it's helpful. I think your kids need to go, what do I want to do? Okay? And then they have to learn how to spend their own money. So, next question. As first-time parents in a few months, what should we be doing now to prepare to have a gospel-centered home and to parent biblically? Let's let Michelle, mommy, answer that first. You're not ready to have a baby, Gracie, so...
Well, we've been talking about that the last couple of weeks, haven't we, about marriage. Work on your marriage like crazy, okay? So getting your like-minded ideas on, first and foremost, practicing the gospel with each other in your marriage. And that's going to be an ongoing thing. But if you've got some time to prepare a little bit more while you're waiting for that little baby to come, that's pretty terrific. And then I would say begin to become like-minded on how you're going to parent this baby. And again, I mentioned the book Baby Wise. It's a really great book to help you off on your way to be able to use a schedule and some things to get your mind centered on the right things to make your home a Christ and gospel-centered home, not a child-centered home. And Chris was talking about that a couple weeks ago. So many families do that. And you start doing those things from the minute that baby's born. That Baby Wise book is great. I have several friends around the church. You can ask a lot of the other pastors' wives who've used that book. It's been very helpful to get you off on the right foot. And again, pick up some of those books by the Trips and start reading through them. They'll become something that you dog ear, that you write in. They are very, very helpful. I am all for getting outside help. I don't try to go, okay, now where's all the wisdom going to come from? Obviously, God gives us wisdom through really good materials that are out there, and they've helped us immensely. So I would say do all those things. Yeah,
just really, the best thing you can do for your kids is to have a marriage that's strong. I mean, flat out. That's what a gospel-centered home looks like, is your kids seeing the gospel on display in front of them, because you guys are so committed to each other through the ups and downs, through, good times and bad times, through job loss and job gain. They look and they say, you know what? Mommy and daddy, that is an impenetrable fortress. They love each other. And suddenly they start to put two and two together. Hey, that's how Jesus loves the church. That's how the church loves Jesus. That's what builds a gospel-centered home. A gospel-centered home isn't that I sit down and have devotions with my kids. It isn't that I read the Bible or pray with them. We do all those things. It's that they see a mommy and daddy. So as a new parent in a few months, I mean, if not already, work, and say, you know what? We're going to make our marriage our priority, even over this child. This child is going to be a welcome addition to our home, not we will now rearrange our lives and now this child becomes the center of everything we do. Don't do that. And don't even do it from if you want to go someplace, go someplace. Drag the child with you. You're coming, right? You're coming with me. We're going to the grocery store. We're getting out. We're going to church. No, You're coming with us. You're going to fit into our life. And then you're going to see mommy and daddy loving each other as you grow older, and that's going to show you a picture of the gospel. Okay? Let's do another one. How can I help my child who has grown up in church not become jaded against the Christian faith? Well, remember, we're after the heart, right? If growing up in the Christian faith is growing up around morality, listen, I think it's very, very possible, and I think it's especially possible with my kids. And I recited several examples to you a few weeks ago of, Samuel and Eli's sons, and they're rubbing up against the things of God and turning out rotten. Because the point is not that we get them to do religious activities. The point is that God captivates their heart. What will jade your child, in my opinion, what will jade them is when they see that this is just a system of rules that I'm being asked to adopt. I'm just going through some kind of motion. What will jade them, Dad, is if you exasperate them, if you are a hypocrite, if you act one way Monday through Friday, but on Saturday or Sunday, whenever you come to church, you're a different person. That will jade them. They'll start to say, this thing doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. So hopefully what they see is, do my kids see a perfect consistency between me and the faith that I profess? No. But hopefully when I'm not, I'm humble enough to go to my kids and say, man, I don't do this very well. Pray for me. When they see that kind of humility, I think it softens their heart to the things of God, where they're willing to go, okay, mom and dad aren't perfect. Mom and dad say they're sorry. Mom and dad ask for forgiveness. But they are deadly, deadly serious about a relationship with Jesus. And it's not just, they don't just go through some motions on the weekend. Mom and dad, if this is something you check the box on your religious obligation on a weekly basis, then you will raise jaded children. But if they see this means everything to you, I'm not saying that's a guarantee. I'm saying that's one way I think you want to show them that this is real. This is real. This is not just we put on some facade a few hours over the weekend. You guys want to add anything to that? Okay. All right, we'll do another one. That's fine. Do another one. What are your rules for your children regarding dating? They can't. No. We do have rules. And the general rule, and I say general because I think you have to look at each child, the general rule is age 17. And there's actually very practical and other reasons for that. First of all, most kids can get their licenses when they're 16, right? But they can't do anything. They can't take anybody out for a date until they're 17, right? I mean, like Tucker could get his license, but he's got to wait a year in order to have, say, I can take a girl to a movie, to dinner, whatever. So that's weird. So I'll meet you, have your mom drop you off, and we'll leave each other, right? So we're like, let it at least be 17, because by 17, there's also a maturity there, theoretically, and there may or may not be. And that's why I say, you have to look at each child individually. Parents, don't make rules that say, at this age, these things always happen. A privilege will always come your way at this age. The state can do that because the state has to do that. Parents don't. We can say, this is all contingent on you being grown up and mature. Okay, so for my girls, okay, there's going to be sort of one standard of dating, that is that they're ready, they're godly girls, they're loving Jesus, I see a maturity in them, and they're ready, but there's rules we have about that, okay? So what's the first rule if a guy wants to ask you out on a date? Gabby? He
has to be a Christian, love Jesus. And he has to have a job.
Yeah. Okay. So, because you're not going to freeload off my daughter and tell me to tell her to pay for the date. And now, if you just want to go out for a cup of coffee and there's that kind of thing where it's a little more innocent, or a group date, whatever, she can go Dutch. But if you're going to ask her out for a date, then I would expect you to pay for him. Okay, so that's step one. That's sort of just, that gets you past then what do they have to do?
They have to come talk to him.
Okay, now, I don't say that because I'm a pastor. Dads, you ought to do that. These are my princesses. There's no way I'm just letting any guy who wants to ask them come into their life and take them out. If I don't know who he is, okay, that's just not, I mean, hopefully I already know them. And so when they come, I'm like, awesome, yeah, that's great. You can take my daughter out. I like you, you're a great guy, but if you're a scumbag, not going to happen, right? No. You do not have my permission. She will not go out with you, and that's not going to happen, right? So there's that rule, and that's for the girls. For Tucker knows that there's no way Tucker's asking a girl out until Tucker is spiritually ready to be a leader. And I'm saying, are you not ready to just lead her out to dinner and pay for dinner? Are you ready to lead her spiritually? I understand that looks different for a husband and wife than it does for a 17-year-old. But are you ready? Or do you have the maturity level to make that up? Do you have a job? Can you pay for a date? Because you're not going to ask her to pay, right? Yeah. Right? So dads, you may not have the rule that a guy has to come ask me. I think you should, by the way. But even if you don't, and my son wants to ask your daughter out, you're going to get a phone call or say, can I have coffee with you? Because he's not asking you to marry her. He's not saying, can I marry your daughter? But, I'd like to ask your daughter out. Is that okay? And then you have a chance to know who my son is. And is he a dirtbag? Is he the kind of guy you want dating your daughters? Seriously, right? He's a great kid, but honestly, you need to know that. And I would expect that of you. So there are these rules, and I would say that 17 is kind of the ideal, and they might waver a little bit, not a whole lot, but waver depending on the maturity of the child. Okay, we've told our kids since the day they could understand. We like chanted this into their brains. What was it, Berkeley? Yeah. Dating is a waste of time. I mean, and seriously, guys. And here's why. Okay, I get that people need to date before they marry, and they do. But do we need to let them date in 5th grade? I mean, it's absolutely silly what parents are doing today. Silly. Dating is an on-ramp onto a highway. And you do not back up on an on-ramp. You get on that on-ramp and you can never go back. And I've told my kids this their whole life. The first time I held Michelle's hand, fireworks went off. Like, oh my gosh, this is my girl, and I'm holding her hand. Well, then, guess what? When I kissed her, suddenly holding hands was kind of like, yeah, I've been there, done that. Right? Some of you are allowing your kids to have relationships and even seeing physical things as innocent, putting their arm around her. Let me just, and I've told my girls this. Guys, you need to talk to your girls this way. You have no idea the fireworks you are setting off inside of a young hormonal boy when you come and hug him and hold his hand or kiss him on the cheek or do something that seems very innocent to you. I'm telling you right now, fireworks are going off in that kid. Okay, he is firing on all pistons like, holy moly, I want more of that. Okay, that's not helpful. So you have to be very careful about those physical boundaries, and there's no going back. Nobody who's gone whatever distance it is wants to turn around and go back and say, I want to start this whole thing all over. Okay, they want to keep moving forward. So the sooner you get that kid onto the dating on-ramp and onto the relationship on-ramp, the more they're going to be further down the road, and suddenly, you're like, wow, how come they landed in bed with a person of the opposite sex? How come they're having sex before marriage when they're 16, 17? Well, when did you start them out? When did you get them going down this road? It's just a dangerous thing to do. So I want my kids to be ready. That is a privilege, and that is something that they need to be coached in. Coach them, help them understand the responsibilities of dating. And it ought to be something, probably starts off in group dates and that sort of thing, and then eventually, okay, some guy can go with you. But boy, they better be running the track after Jesus at your side, and I can see that. And then they're going to be allowed to be somebody that either asks you out or, okay, buddy, you can go ahead and ask somebody out. Okay? Does that help? Anybody want to say anything?
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
It's perfectly natural and normal for your kids to start liking, a boy or girl. You don't need to panic. I think the first couple of times that my kids were like, oh, I thought someone was cute, I was like, oh my gosh. But I have learned since then that obviously, as your kids get a little older, they're going to be attracted to the opposite sex. That's a good thing. But you have to be careful how you cultivate that and how you allow that to just begin to kind of germinate in your kids' hearts. So you have to take it seriously. Gracie, there was a little fellow that liked her clear back in, 4th grade, right? And it was actually Yeah, but here's the thing. We talked about it. I told her, we said it's natural and normal that you would think this little fellow's cute. He thinks you're cute, but you realize you're not remotely ready for any kind of relationship other than just a friend relationship. And I'll tell you, because that relationship, not that they cultivated it or anything, but their friends around them were pretty good about wanting to egg it on. It caused her a lot of pain and a lot of sadness in that year because the people around her were not helping her, put it on the back burner. That was a really difficult time for her. So you as a parent, don't play into that. Oh, isn't that cute? He's your little boyfriend. That is really a mistake for them. They are not remotely mentally and emotionally equipped to carry that kind of stuff with them. Yeah. They will be very soon. And it's okay. And even in my older kids, we've talked about it. I'm like, hey, I'm glad that you like that person. Now you keep an eye on them for when you're old enough to date. Maybe they're going to be a good one. Or maybe you'll find over the years they weren't as great as you thought they were. But you can talk about it and not be afraid about it and not, put it off, but just cultivate it and push it in the right direction.
And there's been times when we've had, like Tucker will tell you, there's been times when we've had to say, Tucker, I need you. You've got a girl who is now showing you attention, and you might be, because of your behavior, Tucker's a very friendly guy, your behavior might be sending signals to her that you don't mean to send. And so Tucker's had to get on the phone or whatever a couple of times and say, I just need you to know, I'm not ready to date. This is not happening right now, okay? And dads, you got to have that kind of relationship that can say to your son, you can't do that right now. And then hopefully they go, you're right. I mean, Tucker, I was so proud of him. Something happened not too long ago and he emailed me and said, Dad, I did it. I did what you asked me to do. I'm like, way to go, buddy. That's awesome. Now you're getting more mature and you're gonna be ready to do this. But by the time that comes, that's going to be something that you're going to see as a privilege. It's going to be wonderful, and God's going to help you. Why don't we do one more for the kids? So, what's the one thing that your parents have done to help you grow? And I'm going to assume that means spiritually, because we didn't use Miracle Grow, so you're growing naturally. So what is one thing we've done? So just maybe quickly, what would you say?
I think these guys are amazing. I'm just gonna say that right up front. My parents are awesome. They are very good at just making sure, I think, that we understand, the rules they put around us. Not so much for me anymore, but when I was younger, the rules they put around me. And I knew the reason behind almost every sort of rule that was that was put. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself.
So you'd say
yes.
We gave you the why.
Yeah,
giving you the why behind,
which made it to where I honestly felt the same way.
Okay.
So pretty much now I wouldn't do a lot of the things they wouldn't let me do, even like when I was younger, but on my own. Yeah, I can do them. I just choose not to.
Yeah, that's good.
So
Tucker.
I think for me, since I am the only boy in this group, I think it's just been specifically encouragement coming from my dad, because obviously my mom, I'm a mama's boy, so a lot of growth has come from both of them, but specifically from my dad, because he's always been that head figure of the house, but I want to take my life and style it after his, and then at the same time take my life and style it after Christ. And they've been a huge encouragement in both areas of that. So, yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Sort of what Gabby said and what my mom said. When we were little, how our parents put like the funnel where it's really small and then it gets bigger. Our parents did that for us, so when we were littler, like if we were in our high chair, they would put our hands down so we wouldn't be like, woo, but so shaping us when we were little has really helped us grow, because we're not I don't think we're rambunctious.
Depends.
I personally don't think we're loud, but we aren't like wild children.
No. Yeah.
So I think our parents have helped us grow well in that area, and in our spiritual life with that like that contributes to it because it helps us have self-control, which is a fruit of the Spirit.
Good.
And helping us grow, like not physical, okay. Helping us
Spiritually?
grow in our actions
Yeah,
has helped us grow spiritually
Yeah.
with the fruit of the Spirit.
that's good. That's good.
Okay. My parents have like the best relationship that I have seen in any couple that I've seen. They love each other so much, and it is like an unbreakable bond between them. And they encourage us every single day to do our best and through God, and they have a great relationship with each other, and they have a fantastic relationship with God. And I think that's one of the most, or probably the most important thing as a parent that you can do for your children, is be very supportive of your children and be supportive of one another. That is what will help you have a great marriage, and and it'll help your kids as well. They will feel so encouraged. I know I do, because that's just how you act, and they'll feel so great. So
That's
yeah.
great. Well, you guys are pretty great too, and we love you, and I appreciate you being willing to come up here and help us answer some questions. So I hope that's helpful to you. But let's do this. Why don't we pray for everybody? And guys, can you take the stools down while Mommy and I pray? Bow your heads with me.